In the hush of midnight fires, voices murmur of men who were not men. Eyes glimmer like glass, movements too precise, breaths too steady. Villages prayed their neighbors were true, not masks stretched thin across shadows. Legends slip through the smoke, whispering of doubles and hidden beasts. Tonight, you wander where human faces fracture, and nothing is certain beneath the skin. You walk into the desert night. The air is dry, cool, a thin breath against your skin. Above you, the moon is pale and heavy, pulling silver across the dunes. The sand shifts softly beneath your steps, whispering like paper rubbed between fingers. Far away, a jackal cries, sharp, lonely, stretched across miles of emptiness. The desert is a sea without water, and tonight you drift across it. Caravans once moved here, lines of camels, their hooves pressing deep into the dunes, their bells faint in the night. Merchants carried lapis lazuli, grain, spices, sacred oils, treasures that bound cities together, from Ur to Babylon, from Akkad to Nineveh. But for every caravan, there was fear. Not just of thieves, not just of thirst. No, the desert held stranger dangers. You feel it now, that sense that not every shadow belongs to stone, that not every face belongs to flesh. The nomads told the stories quietly, around fires that flickered low to save wood. They said that in the spaces between tribes, there were creatures who borrowed skins. They might appear as wandering strangers, cloaked in dust, seeking rest. Their voices might sound human. Their eyes might glint with warmth. But when the flames died, when sleep grew heavy, the masks would slip. They were called utuku by some, spirits that wore human guise. Others whispered of demons from the underworld, messengers of Ereshkigal, queen of shadows. And some said they were neither gods nor demons, but beasts of the desert itself. Hungry, patient, wearing skins like clothing, until the moment they no longer needed them. You picture it now, a lonely tent at the edge of the dunes, the scent of roasting meat drifting upward. A stranger enters, tired, thirsty, eyes lowered in respect. Hospitality is sacred. Water is poured, food is shared, stories exchanged. And yet something in the smile feels too sharp. Something in the silence feels too long. The Akkadians told of one such figure, a wanderer who walked like a man but cast no shadow. He would arrive with tidings of distant lands, spinning tales of victories and losses. But wherever he passed, sickness followed. Children grew pale, animals refused to rise, and when dawn came, his footprints in the sand led nowhere. They began at the tent and ended in emptiness. You sit with this image. The desert wind brushes your skin, carrying with it the dry taste of dust. Your eyes drift to the stars, 1,000 watching fires burning above you, and you wonder, how many listen to those stories in fear, hoping their neighbor's face was true? In Mesopotamian belief, the line between gods, humans, and spirits was never firm. The gods could take shape in human form. The dead could return as shades. Demons could wear familiar faces. A shape was never trusted on its own. It was the deeds, the silence, the shadow that gave it truth. The Utuku Lemnutu, the evil spirits, were said to walk in twilight hours. Their names were inscribed on clay tablets, spells pressed into the earth to bind them. Priests and exorcists recited chants, summoning fire, water, and ash to force such beings away. But out here, in the endless sand, away from cities and temples, protection was fragile. Only the fire at night, only the circle of people, only the hope that the one beside you was who they seemed to be. You hear it again. The jackal's cry. It breaks, fades, returns, a reminder of hunger that roams freely when humans sleep. Imagine lying beneath the stars, the tent fabric thin, the wind pressing against it like a ghost, your eyes half closed, your breath slowing. Then the faintest sound, the scrape of nails against sand, the whisper of someone moving without weight, a shadow leaning closer, wearing a face you trust. The myth becomes clear. Shapeshifters were not just monsters. They were warnings. They taught vigilance, taught suspicion in places where trust meant survival. A caravan that welcomed every stranger without question risked more than theft. It risked corruption, betrayal, hunger that wore a human smile. But the desert was not without mercy. There were also stories of protectors, spirits who could shift form to guide the lost. Some said the jackal itself was sacred, a messenger of gods, leading wanderers to safety. Others told of a lion-headed guardian, walking in human shape, testing the hearts of travelers. To greet such beings with respect, with honesty, was to earn safe passage. But to lie, to conceal, to welcome deceit, that was to invite the mask of the beast. You picture again the footprints. They are always part of the story. Tracks left in the sand, clear, sharp, as if a man had passed this way. But when followed, they vanish. No destination, no explanation, only the desert, smooth as if untouched. And so you drift deeper into the myth. The stars are softer now, their edges blurred. The wind is quieter, less biting, more like a lullaby. The firelight of ancient camps flickers in your mind, shadows dancing across faces you cannot trust. And you begin to wonder, what would it feel like to see a friend smile and know in your heart the smile was borrowed? In Mesopotamian clay tablets, in the cuneiform lines pressed by patient hands, stories like this survive. Fragments of prayers against spirits, lists of demons with human names, descriptions of rituals where priests poured oil on water, watching the ripples for signs of hidden truth. And though the tablets are broken, though the words are fractured, the fear is clear. A fear of masks, a fear of what walked beside them in the desert night. You return to the dunes, to the moonlight gliding over the sand, to the cry of the jackal, more distant now, like a voice fading into memory. Your steps slow, your breath gentles. The caravan bells are faint, like wind chimes lost in distance. The footprints you follow blur into nothing, a path unfinished, a story unresolved. The desert holds its silence. The fire burns low, and the beast that wears the skin of man waits, somewhere just beyond the edge of dream. The moon sinks lower. The sand cools against your skin, and as the stars blur into mist, you drift onward, toward other forests, other shadows, where hunger and transformation wear new names. But here, in the desert, the footprints have already vanished, and the story refuses to end. You step into a forest where winter never ends. The air is sharp, glassy, biting the inside of your lungs. Snow lies heavy on the ground, crusted, groaning under your weight. The pines bend low, burdened, their needles whispering in the wind. Every sound is softened here. The fall of snow, the creak of frozen wood, the faint crack of ice. But sometimes the silence breaks. Sometimes a branch snaps with the sound of a bone breaking. Sometimes a cry echoes across the trees, too far to find, too close to ignore. You are walking through Algonquin country now. These forests, vast and unending, stretch from the Great Lakes into the northern wilds. Here, winter is not just a season. It is a presence, a spirit, a weight that never lifts. And it is in this cold, in this deep white silence, that the Wendigo is said to roam. The story begins with hunger. It always begins with hunger. Imagine the deep of winter, the rivers locked in ice, the animals scarce, the stores of food gone, families huddled together in lodges, fires burning small, voices hushed to conserve breath, and hunger gnawing, sharper than frost, more endless than the snow. It is here, in these moments of desperation, that the Wendigo is born. The elders say it was once human. A hunter, perhaps, a parent, a friend, someone who knew the laws of the people, the sacred ties of kinship. But hunger can bend laws, can twist spirit, and when flesh was eaten, the unthinkable choice the last resort, the transformation began. The one who consumed became something else, not merely a sinner, not merely a broken human, but a creature, cursed, bound, hollowed, the Wendigo. You picture it now, but the image never stays the same. Some describe it tall, impossibly tall, its bones sharp beneath skin, stretched too thin, eyes glowing with hunger, lips torn and bleeding. Others say it wears antlers, a crown of the forest, the skull of a deer fused to its form. Some even whisper it is skeletal, nothing but bone and ice and gnawing teeth, forever seeking flesh. But all agree on one thing: it is never satisfied. It is hunger given shape. The Algonquin peoples, Ojibwe, Cree, Innu, all told stories of this being. They used its name as warning, as lesson, as shield. Children learned to fear selfishness, to resist greed, to remember that winter demanded sharing, because to take more than your share, to devour without restraint, was to invite the Wendigo into your soul. The word itself changes with the tongue. Windigo, Wedjigo, Witiko. But always, the sound carries weight, like wind curling through frozen branches. You listen now. The forest breathes, but slowly. The air tastes of pine sap and smoke, faint traces of old campfires long since buried, and in that stillness, you can almost hear the name whispered, over and over, carried in the wind, a name without answer. There are stories of hunters, men who went out to find food, but never returned. When their tracks were followed, they ended in confusion, circling back, vanishing into snowdrifts, and in the distance larger tracks appeared. Too long, too wide, too heavy. Not wolf, not bear, something else. Something walking upright. The Wendigo is not only a tale of monsters. It is a mirror held to human frailty. It speaks of greed in times of scarcity, of selfishness in times of community. It is the fear that hunger can make us betray one another, can make us betray ourselves. And so it lingers not just in the forest, but in the heart. Priests and shamans spoke of Wendigo sickness, a condition where one dreamed of flesh, hungered for it, even when food was near. They told of those who cried out in the night, confessing their craving, begging to be cured. Some ceremonies were meant to draw the hunger out, others ended in exile, and some, when danger was too great, ended in death. Better to silence one life, they believed, than to let the hunger spread. You imagine the snow falling heavier now. The sky is pale, endless, a sheet of white pressing down. Your breath curls into mist, lingering, then vanishing. The trees moan under ice, shifting like tired bones. And somewhere far off, there is movement, slow, heavy, something dragging itself between the pines. The Wendigo walks slowly, they say, but never stops. It follows the scent of breath, the warmth of blood, the pulse of the living. It never grows weary. It never turns back. And so long as there are humans in these forests, it has something to seek. The people survived winter by ritual, by sharing, by restraint. Every bite of meat mattered, every flame mattered, and every story mattered, because the stories carried lessons, warnings, memory. To speak of the Wendigo was to remind each other, hunger is not only of the body, it is of the spirit, and if left unchecked, it consumes more than flesh. It consumes the soul. You look around once more. The snow is deeper, softer now, muffling every step. The world feels dreamlike, fading, only half real. The trees blur at their edges, swaying as if in slow breath, and yet the sense remains that you are not alone, that in the hush of this forest, something listens, something waits. The Algonquin stories do not end with triumph. The Wendigo is never slain. It is chased, resisted, evaded, but not destroyed. Because hunger always returns, greed always waits, and winter always comes again. The wind rises, pulling snow into your eyes, into your hair. The forest groans like an old man shifting in his sleep. Your breath is shallow, tired, but still you walk, still you listen, and the whispers follow you, curling through the frozen pines, never ceasing. The footprints fade behind you, lost to drifting snow. The cry of a raven breaks the silence, harsh, sudden, then gone, and the hunger of the Wendigo lingers just beyond sight, just beyond reach, waiting in the white void of winter. The snow falls thicker. The wind carries your name into silence, and as the forest closes around you, you drift deeper into sleep, toward other myths, other shadows, where hunger takes different shapes. But here, beneath the frozen pines, the Wendigo still waits, unfinished, unanswered. You stand among hills of stone and dust. The night air is warm, but the caves breathe cool dampness. Torches flicker in the hands of villagers, their flames trembling against jagged walls. The light does not travel far, swallowed quickly by shadows, and the shadows themselves seem to shift, curling like scales, moving like something alive. The smell of smoke clings to your skin. The air tastes of ash and damp stone, and from deep within the caverns, there comes a sound. Soft at first, like the hum of a voice carried by water, a song, half-formed, unfinished. This is the land of Greece, where myths cling to every rock, every olive grove, every whisper of sea breeze. Gods walked here, heroes fought here, but not every story is of triumph. Some are of loss, of hunger, of sorrow turned monstrous. Such is the story of Lamia. The tale begins with beauty. She was once a queen, they say, a woman of Libya, radiant, admired even by the gods themselves. Zeus looked upon her, as Zeus so often did, with desire, and from their union came children. But Hera, his wife, could not forgive. The queen of the heavens was merciless in her jealousy. She stole Lamia's children, tore them from her arms, left her hollow, howling, and in her grief, Lamia changed. Some say Hera cursed her, twisting her body, giving her the form of a serpent. Others say grief alone did it. Grief so sharp it cracked her soul, reshaped her flesh, left her less woman, more beast. Her eyes grew hollow, her teeth sharp, her hunger endless, and she began to seek the children of others, devouring what had been denied her. You imagine her now, half woman, half serpent, her body gliding across stone, her scales shining faintly in torchlight, her face still beautiful, but stretched, trembling, eyes forever wide, with sleeplessness. For another gift, or curse, was given. Lamia could not close her eyes, forever awake, forever grieving, forever hunting. The myths say she plucked her own eyes from her head, hiding them in jars when she wished to rest. The caves where you stand were said to be her haunts, dark mouths of earth, where songs drifted outward. Some said she lured with beauty, her voice soft, her words sweet. Children, curious, would follow the sound and vanish. Others believed she prowled the fields at night, her shadow stretching across farmland, slipping into villages when sleep was deepest. The Greeks told these stories not only to frighten children, but to explain the cruel losses of life.
Why did infants die in their sleep?
Why did mothers wake to silence where once there was breath? The Lamia was an answer, a sorrow turned supernatural, a mother who had lost everything, taking from others in return. You feel the stones beneath your feet grow colder. Moisture beads along the cave walls, dripping in rhythm, steady like a heartbeat. The torchlight trembles, and in the silence between drips, you almost hear it again. The faint song, the broken lullaby of a mother with no child left to soothe. In some places, Lamia was not alone. She became many, a race of beings, women serpents who hunted, who tricked, who seduced. They were said to drain the strength of men, to devour youth, to leave villages hollow. Even in later times, the word Lamia lingered in folklore, whispered to children as warning. Do not stray into the night. Do not follow strange voices. Do not trust what looks beautiful. For beauty may wear scales beneath the skin, yet in every telling, grief remains at the core. Lamia was not born a monster. She was made one, by loss, by betrayal, by the cruelty of gods who loved too easily and hated too fiercely. Her hunger was not simple malice. It was mourning sharpened into teeth. You breathe in the damp air. The cave seems to close around you, walls leaning in, dripping, whispering. The shadows flicker with serpentine shapes. You cannot tell if they are real or imagined, and in that confusion lies the power of myth. The line between truth and story blurs. You feel it in your skin. The unease, the quiet dread, the sense of being watched. The villagers would leave offerings, bowls of milk, small breads, tokens of appeasement placed at the edges of caves, in hopes the Lamia would take them instead of children. But the stories say she was never sated, the grief too large, the hunger too deep, and so the offerings rotted, the caves remained haunted, the lullabies drifted unanswered across the hills. Late poets and philosophers retold her tale. Some softened her, made her a figure of tragic beauty, a warning of divine cruelty. Others sharpened her into a nightmare, a caution against desire, a tale to frighten the unfaithful. And so Lamia lived on, not in flesh but in imagination, her serpent body sliding across centuries, her eyes never closing, her hunger never fading. You step deeper into the cave now. The torchlight flares, then wanes, then flares again. The ground is slick beneath your feet. Your breath sounds too loud in your ears, and always just ahead, that song. It does not grow closer, but it does not fade. It lingers, like grief, like hunger, like the story itself, never finished. The Greeks feared her, but also pitied her. She was both victim and monster. She carried within her the reminder that sorrow, if left unchecked, can devour. That love, when twisted by cruelty, can turn into hunger without end, and that even the most beautiful faces can carry shadows too deep to see. You leave the cave. The air outside is warmer, the sky painted with stars. The torches flicker lower, their flames small against the vast night. But when you turn back, you see the dark mouth of the cavern, silent now, waiting, and you know the song is still inside, whispering to whoever dares listen. The hills breathe with silence, the torches gutter low, and as you walk away, the night seems heavier, as if carrying the sorrow of a mother's endless hunger. Her song drifts still, faint, unfinished, leading you onward to other myths, other shadows, where grief wears different faces. You drift now into another land, where night is softer, perfumed, alive with whispers. The air here carries the scent of incense, faint but lingering, sweetened with pine and smoke. Lanterns sway gently at the edges of shrines, their paper shades glowing pale against the mist. The gardens breathe with silence, except for the faint rustle of silk as a figure passes just beyond your sight. This is Japan, a land of winding rivers, bamboo groves, and mountains wrapped in cloud. Here, spirits do not live only in the heavens or under the earth. They breathe within the world itself, in stones, in streams, in foxes that slip between shadow and light. You walk beneath the torii gate, its wooden frame painted vermilion, its archway leading you from the human world into the realm of spirits. The shrine is quiet, but not empty. You feel the weight of unseen eyes, curious, amused, waiting. They are the eyes of the kitsune. The fox, in Japanese folklore, is no simple animal. It is clever, patient, old as the soil itself, and some foxes live long enough to learn the art of transformation. With every 100 years, they say, a fox grows another tail. One becomes two, two becomes three, and with 9 tails, the kitsune is at the height of its power, able to appear as human, able to speak with charm, able to trick, to bless, to curse. You pause among the garden stones. The fog drifts low, curling around your ankles. A laugh rises, soft, distant, playful. It does not echo, but vanishes, as if swallowed by the mist. And you remember what the farmers said. Beware the woman who comes at dusk, beautiful, graceful, her eyes too bright. For she may not be a woman at all. The kitsune takes many forms. She may appear as a wandering maiden, lost and in need of shelter. She may come as a bride, her robes white, her steps delicate. She may sit beneath the moon, combing her hair of black silk, humming a song that lures travelers closer. But always, something betrays her. A flick of the tail glimpsed in lamplight, a shadow that does not match the shape, eyes that gleam too sharp, too golden, and when the trick is revealed, it is often too late. You imagine the stories told across villages. A man follows a stranger into the fields, only to vanish until dawn. When he returns, he is pale, trembling, his strength drained. Or perhaps he does not return at all. Some say he is devoured. Others say he becomes fox-touched, wandering, unable to tell dream from waking. But not all kitsune were feared. There were tales, too, of fox brides who stayed, who bore children, who loved sincerely. Legends where the fox spirit chose kindness, weaving itself into human life. Until one day, the truth slipped, a tale glimpsed, a shadow betrayed, and then as softly as she came, she was gone, leaving only memory. The wind stirs the garden. The lanterns flicker, and you feel a presence draw near. Not menacing, not kind, simply watching. The stories say the kitsune delights in testing hearts. Some it fools, some it frightens, some it rewards. They are not bound to malice alone. They are tricksters, balancing between blessing and curse. At shrines to Inari, the god of rice and prosperity, fox statues stand guard. Stone guardians with pointed ears, tails curled, mouths half open as if speaking. These foxes are said to be messengers of the god, divine in purpose. Farmers left offerings of rice and sake at their paws, praying for harvest, protection, luck. And so, the kitsune's nature bends 2 ways. A sacred servant, a playful trickster, a spirit of fortune, a shadow of fear. You breathe in the incense again. The night is thicker now, the fog rolling heavier through the shrine. Shapes shift within it half seen, never clear. You wonder if you walk alone. Perhaps the laughter you heard was real. Perhaps it waits still, just beyond the veil of mist. The Japanese believed the kitsune could slip into dreams. A man might wake in sweat, remembering a woman's touch, her warmth beside him, and when he reached, his hands found only empty bedding. But outside, in the dew of morning, were fox tracks circling his home. Stories blurred the lines between dream and waking, between love and illusion. You stand still, listening. The forest beyond the shrine rustles. Leaves stir, branches shift, and faintly, you hear the brush of paws against stone. The fox moves silently, but the earth remembers its passing. In the oldest tales, the nine-tailed kitsune was more than a trickster. It was a force of destiny, a being tied to cosmic cycles. Such foxes could see centuries unfold, empires rise and fall, loves bloom and wither. To meet such a fox was to touch eternity, but also to risk being consumed by it. And so the villagers whispered their warnings. Do not walk alone at night. Do not trust every stranger. Do not follow laughter into fog, yet still, the stories tell of men who could not resist. And perhaps you understand, for in the silence of these gardens beneath lantern light, the thought of a figure waiting, beautiful and impossible, is both fearful and alluring. The fox's charm is not only deception, it is wonder. It is the possibility that magic walks beside you, that the ordinary world hides tales and golden eyes just out of sight. The lanterns flicker once more. Their glow blurs in the mist. The incense burns low, smoke curling in thin ribbons toward the unseen sky. And as you turn to leave, you hear it again. The laughter, soft, amused, fading quickly into silence. It leaves you uncertain, unsettled, yet strangely comforted, as if the fox wished only to remind you she is here, always watching, always near, always unfinished. The shrine fades behind you. The lanterns dim to nothing, and in the fog, you walk onward, carrying with you the rustle of silk, the glimmer of tales, the echo of laughter that vanishes before it is caught. The night remains unfinished, leading you deeper into other deserts, other shadows, where hunger and trickery take new forms. You drift now into desert night. The sand stretches endless, a sea without water, rippling beneath starlight. The air is thick, warm, tasting of spice and smoke. Somewhere, far away, drums beat slowly, carrying across the dunes, a rhythm older than memory. Here, beneath Arabian skies, the world is wide and endless, but not empty. The desert is a place of whispers. It keeps its secrets, and among the secrets, one name lingers like dry wind on the tongue. Ghoul. You walk along a caravan trail. The camels are quiet, their padded feet pressing soft impressions into sand that the wind quickly erases. The traders murmur low, their eyes darting to the shifting horizon, for they know that not all shapes seen in the distance are what they seem. The ghoul, they say, waits in the dunes. It wears no single face. It can become the lost traveler, calling out for help. It can become the merchant's wife, the child who strayed, the friend believed dead. It takes the shape you most wish to see, and in your relief, you draw near. Too near, legends whisper that the ghoul feeds on flesh. It lures the living, then drags them into hidden hollows in the sand. Bones are buried shallow, scattered like pale stones across the desert floor. The winds cover them, then uncover them, as if the desert itself cannot decide whether to keep the secret. You pause by a fire. The traders sit in a circle, shadows long and flickering. Their stories weave with the smoke, curling upward into night. One man recalls a friend who followed footprints into the dunes and returned never. Another swears he once saw a woman at dusk, her veil drifting, her hand lifted as if in greeting, until he noticed her feet were backward, pointing the wrong way. He ran. He did not look back. The ghoul belongs to the jinn, spirits born of smokeless fire, neither angel nor human, neither fully seen nor unseen. But where some jinn might guard, might guide, the ghoul consumes. It haunts graveyards, lonely wells, abandoned roads where only the desperate wander. It waits where the living are weakest and most alone. You listen to the wind. It moans low, like a voice stretched thin across dunes, a trick of air or a call. You cannot tell. The stars above are sharp, glittering, closer than in any other sky, and yet they offer no comfort. The desert below seems alive, every shadow a moving form, every dune a watching figure. You think of the ghoul, faceless, yet wearing every face, always familiar, always wrong. In old tales, heroes sought the ghoul with sword and prayer. They hunted it in caves, where the air smelled of rot and smoke. Some claimed the ghoul could be slain only by steel blessed with sacred words. Others said it could never truly die, for the desert itself birthed it anew. Always it returned, reshaping itself, hiding in stories, waiting again in silence. You imagine now the shifting shapes, the child's voice, thin in the wind, "Help me." The mother's figure at twilight, reaching, her face hidden by shadow. The friend's call, just beyond the next dune, each step pulling you deeper until the drums fade, until the fire is lost, until the sand swallows your path. The ghoul does not chase. It waits. It allows you to come to it. And when you do, it is already too late. Yet the tales are not only of fear. Some say the ghoul is a test, that in resisting it, you prove strength, that in naming it aloud, you break its charm, that sometimes, if spared, the ghoul whispers secrets of hidden wells, of treasures buried, of truths no man should know. Even demons may hold knowledge, wrapped in hunger. The traders finish their stories. The fire burns low. You lie back, the sand warm beneath your body, the sky endless above. But as your eyes close, you wonder what shape the ghoul might take if it came for you. A voice you long to hear again, a face you lost, or perhaps your own reflection, smiling, walking toward you through the dunes. The drums in the distance slow, then fade. The desert returns to silence. Only the wind moves, only the stars remain, and yet you feel the echo of footsteps, faint, circling, never near, never gone. The ghoul's trails are said to turn back on themselves, looping endlessly, unfinished. You might follow them until dawn and find yourself where you began, unchanged, except for the hunger that now lingers behind you. Hunger with no face, no end. The desert flames dim, the stars blur into mist. Sand becomes smoke, smoke becomes shadow, and in the silence, you drift onward, following trails that do not end, into the next night, where new myths breathe. Waiting, you step now into the heavy night of medieval Europe. The air is wet, sharp with the taste of iron and storm. Above you, a castle rises, its walls slick with moss, its towers lost in the swirling mist. The torches along the battlements hiss, each flame struggling against the rain. Every shadow here seems alive, stretching long, curling like claws across the stone. The age of knights and kings was never silent. It rang with steel and prayer, the clash of armies, the whisper of Latin words beneath vaulted roofs. But alongside the prayers and oaths, there were fears spoken in softer voices, fears of men who were no longer men, fears of flesh that tore itself apart beneath the moon's gaze. The werewolf, not merely a beast, but a man marked, cursed, bound by sin and shadow. In the folk tales whispered across France, across Germany, across the misty woods of the north, they said the werewolf was once a knight, or a peasant, or even a priest, someone who had broken an oath too sacred, someone who had tasted blood forbidden, and in that moment, something shifted within them. The man remained by day, but by night, the wolf emerged. You walk through the castle's great hall. The banners are damp, their colors dimmed by smoke. The long table stretches before you, where lords once feasted, their laughter echoing against stone. But tonight, the chairs are empty. Only the wind speaks, and beneath it, faintly, another sound. A low growl, as if the stones themselves breathe. The chroniclers wrote of werewolves not as tales for children, but as truths whispered at trials and executions. In 16th century France, men stood accused of the wolf's hunger. One man confessed to wearing a salve that made his skin fall away, revealing the beast beneath. Another claimed he stalked the woods, half man, half wolf, feasting on lost children. The people believed, and they burned, or hanged, or broke the bones of those accused, not just for the crime, but for what they had become. You imagine a knight in armor, kneeling before the cross, his vows heavy on his lips, his sword heavy in his hand. He is sworn to protect, to serve, to defend the weak, and yet something gnaws at him, a hunger he cannot name. When the moon rises full and pale, he feels it rising too. The tearing within, the cracking of bone, the scream that splits into a howl. What oath can hold against such fire? What prayer can silence the beast that was waiting all along? The villagers told stories in the dark of travelers found torn beside the road, their faces unrecognizable, of sheep slaughtered in their pens, though the gates were locked, of claw marks on church doors deep as knives. The priest would speak of the devil's curse. The healer might whisper of herbs and charms, but none could promise safety when the night grew long. You walk now into the castle chapel. The air is damp, the scent of wax and stone lingering. The crucifix hangs above, the figure worn smooth by centuries of prayer. But even here, the wolf could not be kept out, for the curse did not live in the woods, or in the storm, or in the shadows. It lived within the flesh of men, within oaths broken, within hungers unspoken. Some said the werewolf's skin could be cast off like a cloak, hidden beneath roots or stones. If stolen, the man would never return, forever trapped in fur and fang. Others swore that only silver could pierce the heart of such a creature, for silver was pure, untarnished by the corruption of flesh. And so men carried coins, carried blades, carried prayers etched in metal, hoping that purity would protect them from the beast their neighbor might become. The rain thickens outside. You hear it dripping through cracks in the ceiling, running down the stone walls like veins. And with it comes another sound, a distant cry, sharp, broken, rising into a howl. It echoes through the empty halls, then fades into silence. You listen, waiting for it to return. But the castle keeps its secrets. There are stories of cursed families, bloodlines marked by the wolf, of men who vanished into the forest, returning with eyes too bright, too hungry, of women accused of feeding on the flesh of their own kin, wearing the skin of beasts at night. The Inquisition called them servants of Satan. The peasants called them neighbors, feared and hated. But in the silence of night, in the dripping of stone, all names blurred, and the howl remained. You step now into the courtyard. The rain is cold, soaking your cloak, pooling on the stones. The wind whips the banners, snapping them like broken wings. And somewhere, beyond the walls, the forest waits, dark, endless, whispering. It is there the wolf runs. It is there the cursed knight flees, his armor cast aside, his vow broken, his hunger free. You hear him still, his voice carried in the storm, a sound between grief and rage, between man and beast. The torches hiss, and the rain falls harder. The castle seems alive, breathing, listening. Every drip, every echo, every shadow feels like movement. You wonder if the beast still walks these halls, if beneath the moss, beneath the stone, beneath the silence, the curse lingers still. And as you leave the courtyard, you feel eyes on you. Not human, not entirely beast, something caught between. Watching, waiting. The howl fades into rain, the rain into silence, the silence into sleep. The castle walls blur, the torches dim, and you drift onward into the next story, where rivers rise in mist and voices echo across water, half sung, half lost. You are drifting now, deeper into the green heart of the Amazon. The forest presses close on every side, its breath heavy and damp. Leaves glisten with droplets from a storm already past, each drop catching the pale light that filters through the canopy. The air is thick with orchids and wet earth, their fragrance rising with the mist that coils above the river. And at the river's edge, water moves slow, endless, mirroring the jungle's secrets back into the sky. The people of this place have always known the river is alive, not just in its currents, not only in the fish that glitter beneath its surface, but in its spirit. It carries whispers, it remembers names, and sometimes it sings. They call the singers encantados, beings born of the river, most often in the shape of dolphins, pink, sleek, moving easily through muddy waters. But not always dolphins. Sometimes, when the moonlight is soft and the mist is thick, they emerge as men and women. Beautiful, strange, unearthly, with eyes too deep, smiles too lingering, voices too sweet to resist. You stand at the water's edge. The mist curls around your feet, cool, delicate. Somewhere nearby, a bird shrieks once, then vanishes into silence, and then faintly you hear it. A song. It is gentle, playful, flowing like the river itself. A melody that seems to know your name, though no one has spoken it aloud. The tribes tell of nights when festivals blazed in the villages, drums thundering, firelight flickering, dancers moving like shadows, and among them a stranger would appear, handsome, dressed in white, wearing a wide-brimmed hat pulled low. He would dance gracefully, laugh easily, charm with a voice soft as the current. No one knew where he came from, no one saw him leave, but sometimes a girl from the village would vanish into the night, last seen walking toward the river, her steps unsteady, her eyes distant. The wide-brimmed hat hides something. The encantado, even in its human form, cannot fully conceal its truth. Beneath the hat lies the telltale mark, the blowhole of the dolphin, still etched into the crown of its head, a sign of its river-born soul. You listen to the song again. It is closer now. The river stirs as if something rises beneath, and in the mist, you think you see a figure, pale, gliding, half hidden. It could be a man. It could be a dolphin. It could be only your reflection. Blurred and shifting on the water's skin, the encantado is not always cruel. Some stories say it lures with love, not hunger, that it takes humans not to destroy them, but to bring them into its own world. The world beneath the river, where cities of light gleam, where music never ceases, where time moves differently. But once taken, a person rarely returns, and if they do, they return changed, eyes haunted, heart restless, their mind still listening to songs no one else can hear. In the villages, Mothers warn their children not to linger at the river after dark, not to answer voices from the mist, not to follow music that drifts across the water. For the Encantado is patient. It does not need to chase, it only calls, and those who listen too long cannot resist. You step into a canoe, the wood worn smooth by years of river journeys. The paddle dips into the current, and you move slowly downstream. The forest leans close, branches trailing in the water, vines twisting like serpents. The mist thickens, silver in the moonlight, until the shore fades away. Only river, only sky, only song. The legends speak of shamans who knew the ways to guard against the Encantado. They carried charms of bone and feather, painted symbols upon the skin, whispered prayers into the water. But even they admitted no protection was certain. The river belongs to itself. Its spirits cannot be commanded, only respected, only feared. The paddle drips softly, the ripples spreading outward, merging with the wider current. You lean back, listening. The song has grown tender, mournful, like a memory half forgotten. It speaks of longing, of a world hidden just below the surface, calling you gently home. You imagine what lies beneath. A city brighter than fire, glowing in the river's belly, columns of pearl, streets of sand, laughter echoing through caverns where dolphins dance in human shape. Perhaps it is paradise, perhaps it is prison. The legends never agree. But what they do agree is this: once the Encantado touches you, something changes. You may return to your village, to your fire, to your family, but the river will call you again. The mist will rise, the orchids will bloom, the song will return. And in the quiet hours, you will dream of waters deeper than night, of voices that never fade. The canoe drifts, its course decided not by you, but by the river. The mist swirls, closing tighter, as if wrapping you in its arms. And there, through the veil, a figure waits, dressed in white, hat low, smile warm. He raises a hand, beckoning, and the water ripples as if laughing. You close your eyes. The song folds around you, part lullaby, part temptation. The orchids breathe sweetly in the mist. The river keeps its secrets, flowing endlessly, carrying the stories of those who stepped too near, too deep. The canoe drifts into silence. The mist folds over the water, covering all shapes, all songs, and you float onward, half awake, half dreaming, toward the next horizon, where grasslands stretch beneath the endless wind, and the wolf's shadow runs again. You step now into a land without walls. The step rolls outward in every direction, endless, untamed. Grass bends like waves in the sea, each stalk moving with the wind, a tide of green that never rests. The sky above is vast, so wide it feels heavy, pressing down with its weight of blue and gray. And always there is the sound of the wind, low, moaning, ancient. It carries secrets, it carries names, and it never stops. This is the home of horsemen. The thundering of hooves rises like thunder across the plains, herds moving swift as storms, warriors riding with hair streaming, their cries swallowed by the horizon. Here the horse is not an animal, but a soul's companion. Children are set on saddles before they can walk. Men ride for battle, for trade, for worship, and always they ride beneath the eyes of spirits. The shamans say the steppe is not empty. It is crowded with those unseen. Ghosts of ancestors, restless and near, shadows of beasts, wolves and eagles, lingering between life and death, and among them, spirits that shift. From wolf to man, from man to shadow, from shadow back to beast. Not fixed, never whole, always between. They are feared, for they cannot be named. cannot be contained. You pause at the circle of a shaman's fire. The smoke rises thin, twisting into the sky, carrying prayers upward. He beats a drum, slow, steady, the sound like hooves on distant earth. The drumbeat calls the spirits, or perhaps warns them away. Around his neck hangs a necklace of bone and claw, charms meant to shield, though he knows no charm is perfect. He chants softly, his voice weaving with the wind, asking the unseen for mercy. For in the stories of the steppe, the wolf is both sacred and dangerous. Some clans trace their bloodlines back to a wolf and a doe who birthed the first of their people. To honor the wolf is to honor their own origin. Yet the wolf also hunts, kills, takes without asking. And when a man carries too much hunger, too much rage, the shamans whisper that he may shift into wolf shape himself. Not by choice, but by curse, by imbalance of spirit. The warriors tell of riding out under the moon and finding tracks too large, too deep, circling the camp. They tell of voices carried in the wind, calling like brothers, yet not quite human. They tell of shadows that move alongside them, never seen fully, never vanishing. To meet such a spirit is to lose one's way. To follow it is to vanish into the grass, never found again. The steppe itself seems to aid their mystery. There are no walls, no markers, only horizon after horizon. A man can ride for days and return to where he began, believing he has gone far. The land loops and folds, and in its vastness, all things blur. Perhaps the wolf spirits are only the land itself, shifting, wearing the shapes of beasts and men. The shamans prepare rituals for protection. They paint faces with ash, scatter milk on the ground, offer the fat of animals to the fire. They drum until their bodies shake, entering trance, speaking with voices that are not their own. They say they must balance between worlds, between the living and the spirits, between man and beast, between shadow and light. To ignore this balance is to invite the shifting curse. You walk further into the grasslands. The wind rises, pulling at your cloak, stinging your face. Dust spins in small whirlwinds, then scatters, and there, far away, you see shapes moving. Wolves, perhaps, or men on horseback, or something caught between. They move swiftly, too swift, and then they vanish, swallowed by the horizon. In the great epics of Mongolia, wolves are guides as much as hunters. They lead lost warriors home. They protect children in the night. They fight beside heroes in times of war. Yet always their loyalty is uncertain, for the wolf is free, bound to no oath, answerable to no man. To ride with the wolf is to risk becoming one, wild, untamed, forgotten by kin. The fire of the shaman flickers in memory as you ride onward. The grass brushes against your legs, whispering. The sky darkens, clouds racing like riders across its wide expanse. And then as the sun sinks, you hear it. A howl, not far, not close. Everywhere, it rises, splits, doubles, as if carried by more than one throat, more than one world. You cannot tell if it comes from wolves, from men, or from ghosts. The horses shift uneasily. They stamp, their ears flicking, their breath steaming in the cool night air. They know what you do not. They see what you cannot. For the old belief says that animals glimpse the shifting spirits more clearly than men. The horse may refuse to move forward, even when the rider commands. Better to listen, better to trust. The howl fades, but the air does not calm. It thickens, charged, like before a storm. The grass seems to ripple, though the wind has stilled, and the horizon swallows all shape, all sound, leaving only the pulse of your own heart. The shamans say the spirits that shift between wolf, man, and ghost are warnings, that they remind men of their own instability, their own thin hold on balance. A man can be brave by day, a beast by night, a ghost in memory. The boundaries are fragile, and perhaps the spirits are not curses at all, but mirrors, showing men what they are, what they might become. You close your eyes, listening to the steps' voice. It is endless, hollow, filled with echoes of hooves, of howls, of drums. It tells no truth, gives no answer, only the sound of the wind, returning again and again, until it feels like your own breath. The step stretches on, grass merging with horizon, horizon merging with sky. Wolves run, men ride, ghosts drift, all vanishing into distance, and you drift too, carried by wind, carried by hooves, carried by shadows, into the next story, where a mirror waits and a double smiles faintly in the silence. You find yourself wandering a dim corridor, its walls close, its air still. A candle flickers in your hand, wax dripping slow as time itself. The smell of smoke clings heavy, mingled with something colder. The hush that follows a flame extinguished. Here, in this silence, shadows stretch longer than they should, and shapes lean close. Somewhere in the echo of your own footsteps, you think you hear another, softer, delayed, yet perfectly in rhythm. Europe has always whispered of doubles. In German tongues, they were called doppelganger. The double-goer, the one who walks beside you unseen. Across villages and cities, in cottages and courts, people told of figures who bore your face, your voice, your very gestures, and yet were not you. To glimpse such a double was not fortune, but omen, for the double did not visit idly. It came with purpose, and that purpose was shadowed by death. You drift through a chamber where portraits line the walls. Faces stare outward, captured in oil and pigment, yet their eyes seem to shift as you pass. The likeness is too perfect, too precise. It is as though the painter did not merely capture the sitter, but also their reflection, their echo, their second self. And you wonder, when you look into a mirror, who looks back? Is it only you, or something waiting, patient, inhabiting glass and surface until the moment of crossing? Legends stretched from north to south. In Norway, tales told of the Vardøger, a spirit double that arrived before the real person, performing their actions in advance, creating an eerie déjà vu. Servants would hear their master's steps, hear doors creak open, see shadows pass, only for the master to arrive moments later. In Ireland and England, they spoke instead of fetches, spirits that mimicked the form of the living, often seen by loved ones at the hour of death. And in Germany, the heartland of the word itself, the doppelganger was not simply a spirit, but a fate, a mirror that cracked the boundary between living and dying. You step outside, into air, thick with mist. A church bell tolls in the distance, its sound heavy, funereal. Graveyards stretch beyond the village walls, crosses leaning in the earth, stones marked with names that blur in weather and rain. It was said that the double was seen here most often, wandering by graves, standing by doors, waiting at the edge of a bed in the dark hour before dawn. Never speaking, never smiling, only present, and the breath of its presence carried the scent of wax and cold stone. The scholars of the Enlightenment tried to name it differently. They called it hallucination, a trick of the mind, the brain misfiring. They spoke of the uncanny, that which is both known and unknown, familiar yet wrong. A man might glimpse his twin in the street and know, rationally, it is not real. But the heart does not obey reason. The heart trembles, convinced that something forbidden has been seen. You pause by a river, its surface black and still. Water reflects the world with strange precision, yet always a distortion, always a shimmer. It was here that many spoke of first seeing the double, not in life, not in flesh, but in reflection, the shape that lingered longer than you moved, the eyes that blinked when yours did not, the faint delay, as if another presence wore your image imperfectly, and perhaps in that reflection, the water itself remembered something you had not yet lived, a death you had not yet met. In palaces, too, the stories traveled. Empress Catherine the Great of Russia was said to have entered her throne room, only to find herself already seated there. Her servants, terrified, swore they had seen her double command the throne. Soon after, her health faltered, and her reign fell into twilight. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, the poet, told of riding down a country road and seeing his own self approaching, dressed not as he was, but as he would be years later, and when the years passed, he found himself dressed in that same attire, riding the same path, completing the cycle. The double is not always doom. Sometimes it is memory, sometimes it is warning, but always it unsettles, for it asks a question with no easy answer. Who are you, truly? You walk now through a hall lined with mirrors. Each one holds your face, endless, multiplied, stretching into eternity. Yet with each reflection, small differences appear. A tilt of the head you did not make, eyes that do not blink when yours do, a mouth curving into a smile you do not feel. The more you look, the less certain you are that any of them are yours. The doppelganger drifts not only in folklore, but in the folds of dreams. How many nights have you dreamt of yourself, moving apart, acting beyond your will? In dream, doubles flourish, reflections of your fears, your desires, your hidden selves. The line between dream and waking grows thin, and when morning comes, you wonder if the shadow in your sleep might someday step outward into daylight. The shamans of the steppe, the priests of the north, the mystics of old Europe, they all spoke, in different tongues, of this same haunting, that each human carries within them more than one self. The double is not intruder but mirror. It is the hollow echo that walks with you, waiting. Sometimes it reveals itself, a glimpse at the corner of sight. Sometimes it does not need to, for you already feel it, a chill when no breeze blows, a whisper of breath when no one is near. The candle in your hand gutters, flame thinning to smoke. For a moment in the dark, you see it, yourself, standing just beyond the edge of the light, silent, still. The face is yours, but not. The eyes do not blink. The chest does not rise with breath, and then as the smoke curls, it fades, unfinished. The corridor lengthens, the mirrors stretch, and the silence deepens. Somewhere, footsteps still follow yours, always a heartbeat behind, and you walk onward, into a darker chamber, where whispers rise not from doubles, but from the mouths of the dead themselves. The fire burns low, embers crackle, sending up sparks like fleeting stars, fading into blackness above. You sit close, feeling the warmth kiss your skin, but beyond the circle of flame, darkness stretches. Wide, unbroken, endless, and in that darkness, you cannot help but wonder, who waits there, watching, wearing your shadow as their own? Across all lands, in every tongue, a single thread has wound itself into human fear, that what is monstrous does not always come from beyond. It is not always wolf or serpent, ghost or spirit. Sometimes the beast wears you. Sometimes the betrayal does not arrive from the wilderness, but from the hollow within your very flesh. You listen to your own breathing now, steady, soft, almost invisible. But what if it ceased to belong to you? What if another presence hidden in your marrow borrowed it, used it, made of it something unrecognizable? That is the terror woven into the oldest stories. In Mesopotamia, people whispered of shapeshifters who moved between human and beast, trading skins like garments. In the frozen forests of the Algonquin, they spoke of hunger so fierce it could turn a man into something no longer man at all. The Greeks feared the lamia, her beauty, a mask stretched over teeth. In Japan, the fox was not only fox, but woman, wife, lover, deceiver. In the deserts, the ghoul wore faces not its own, leading travelers astray into sands that swallowed whole. And in the stone halls of Europe, nights themselves were said to shift, cursed by cross and moonlight. Every tale, every continent, returns to the same whisper. The danger is not only outside, it is within. You close your eyes, but the thought lingers. What separates human from monster? Is it the shape of the body, the beating of a heart, or is it the choices we make? The hunger we cannot tame, the shadows we refuse to name. There are stories of mirrors that refused to return a reflection, of water that showed another face, darker, older, patient, of dreams where you walked as yourself and yet saw yourself walking beside you. All of them point back to this truth, that the self is never whole, that perhaps inside there is more than one. The fire cracks louder now, a log collapsing inward. The sparks leap, and for a moment, you think you see shapes in the flame. Figures turning, bending, reaching. Faces stretched long, mouths open, but no sound escapes. And you wonder, are they only tricks of light, or memories of those who once looked too closely at their own reflection and found another waiting there? You drift further back, beyond story, into the marrow of fear itself. The betrayal of flesh is not only myth, but memory. Hunger in famine years when the body wasted and gnawed itself. Rage in times of war, when human hands inflicted horrors no beast could match. Madness, sickness, fever. When the mind slipped loose and what remained seemed not quite human. It is easier to call such things curses, easier to whisper of demons and doubles, than to admit that the monster was only ever us. The mist of night presses close. Somewhere, an owl calls, its cry low and hollow. You feel the weight of the world's old fears leaning against you, centuries deep. Every fire in every village, every prayer at every shrine, every mirror covered with cloth. All of it born from one longing, that the beast is always other, that the betrayal will never rise from your own heart, your own face, your own skin. But there are no guarantees. The stories do not end in comfort. They end in questions, in shadows that slip just out of sight, in laughter that sounds too much like your own, in breath on your neck, when no one stands behind you. The night is long, but already it leans towards silence. The fire shrinks, the air cools, your eyelids grow heavy. You find yourself staring into the glow of the embers, seeing shapes move where none should move. And you realize that the stories were never only about the supernatural. They were about this moment, the soft ache of doubt, the fragile hope that when you wake, you will still be only yourself. Across lands and centuries, the myth has always ended the same way. Not with proof, not with certainty, but with silence, unresolved. The beast walks beside you. Perhaps it walks within you. Perhaps it has always been you. And when you lean close to the mirror, searching for an answer, the reflection does not speak. The fire gutters out, leaving only the hush of breath, the rhythm of silence. Shadows fold inward, faces blur, and the night stretches long, and you drift, uncertain whether you are still yourself, or if another has already taken your place.